Right, TrailTrek here, and I just wanted to do a quick sort of live stream really. All I'm trying to do is a roundup for the year. So what I've got here is, here's some little bits and pieces, I shall call them. I just wanted to go through them all because I know I've got a load of reviews here, but I think it's important that I do like a quick roundup because there's so many options now with flashlights, it's getting ridiculous. So I thought if I go through them all and tell you what I like and what I don't like, it's a quick and a concise way to get a lot of information into a small package. Well, I say a small package, but this will probably go on for 4 hours. But anyway, so I'm going to go through the different units and tell you what I think. Now, unfortunately, because this is the only free time I've got to do this, I'm live streaming now. Now that's GMT time, sensible for myself. So for American viewers, I do apologise. It's not on purpose. So if you're in bed, I do apologise. But you can watch this as a replay, so don't worry. The only thing, obviously, that people are going to miss out on is the chat. So I can't reply to chats, obviously, if you're doing them after the live broadcast. So anyway, let's move on here. So first one I want to go through is the tiny, if I can get it to focus, the tiny Klaris mini one, which I really like. Like I say, the only problem I have with this is the fact that yes, it's small, but because it's small, I'll show you the size of the battery. That's kind of its downfall. I think it's too small. I mean, look at the size of the battery there. I mean, that's absolutely tiny. If I can get this to focus. Yeah, there you go. Right, so the problem is here, the battery's so small and compact, which is nice for carrying, especially as a keychain light, but the problem is you're not getting a lot of juice. If you run this on maximum, you only get about 20 minutes. Well, that's not long, is it, unfortunately? So let's get that, if I can get this to focus again. So there's the mini one. Let's have a look. So you've got two settings on this. You've got like a lower one, then a high, and then the high goes up to about 120 lumens. Now I like this, and they've quite sensibly used what's called a TIR reflector. So you're getting a nice diffuse light there, so important. So well designed. Now I was noticing on a few of the forums that people were having to go at Klaris, and they've got nonsensical settings, and who do they think they are? I don't necessarily agree with that. Bear in mind, I haven't seen every single one of the units. Who am I to talk about that? And I'm not an expert. But in my personal opinion, I think they put out some good stuff. And I like the fact that the knurling is larger. If I've got one knocking about, you can see it's almost like a large pineapple effect. It actually works, whereas a lot of them, if you look at like the BLF, that's almost smooth. So it's knurled, but it doesn't actually work. The knurling is just to give you grip. Now, if it's not giving you grip, what's the point? But anyway, that's another matter. So I like this. I just wish it had more capacity. They should have made it a bit longer. And obviously the bonus feature on this is, if you take this off, that's just a LED telling you what's going on. You can charge it. But again, and I keep going over this, for new units, please, manufacturers, can you start using Type-C? Micro USB is old. It's old-fashioned now. So, oh, I've just had a message there saying, give us a flash. So I'll give you a flash. There you go, there's a flash. Although, if you go to my review of the Astra Looks Kia One, quite funny, I think there's a Russian there complaining, called me an ear-hole, saying stop putting the flashlight in the screen, so I shouldn't have done that. But there you go. So if you want some fun, go and look at that review. So like I say, can manufacturers please start using Type-C? You can get more juice through it, and it's a more modern interface. So, but I like this, and I like the fact that they put the USB behind a threaded and O-ring section, which means you're not losing waterproofing, so quite important. So let's put that to one side. Right, next one. Now, I've been really impressed with on the road. Now, yes, I can understand why people see this and say, well, all they've done is they've just copied Olight. Can you see there the design look? Even this hexagonal section, which is an anti-roll device, actually. I mean, they've added a little sort of heat-sinky fin bit, but I can see why people would say, excuse me, but that's a copy. That's just a copy. Right, I've got a message from Tyler Durden. Good morning, Richie. Hello, Tyler. I hope it's going okay there. I'm just going through some of the lights here, so I'll put that to one side there. So, as I've said, I'm really impressed with the on the road. I've carried this for weeks at a time, and I'm really impressed with it. You've got 2 clicks straight to turbo, and I love the tint. Look at that tint there. It's a nice neutral white. And when I talk tint, all I'm on about is a neutral white is closer to sunlight. Now, yes, I know I've discussed this with people before online. I understand that sunlight is white. That's you know, what light is, but obviously on planet Earth, once it comes to the atmosphere, it no longer gets that whiteness, and you tend to get a browny yellowy sort of tint, which I prefer. It makes me smile, put it that way. So I'll turn that off. So I really like this. I like the deep clip, means you can carry it right down in your pocket. I've never had a problem with this, and it's an orange peel reflector, which is one of my favorites. I think it's perfect for mid-range units. Yes, it's not as throwy as, you know, like the C8 Plus, but that doesn't really matter. I like this. The only obvious problem, and I have discussed this before, is it has a side button rather than a tail clicker. So it can be knocked on, but to get around that, there you go, you just put the clip over. Now there's no way, even if you press on this bit here, that's not going to press that, because this end bit just goes against the end here. So there's your way around that. And generally what I do is I keep it like this and slightly off to the side. So if I take it out of my pocket in the dark, my thumb naturally follows this line and I know where the button is. So you're not groping around like some sort of pervert looking for buttons and things like that. So there you go, straight in and double click for turbo. I really like that. So I'm very impressed with on the road. Never had a problem with them. Some of their output figures are a little bit dubious at times, but on this one, very impressed. It's solid, never had a problem. And on this one, I'm running the Nitecore CR123, which is the smaller batteries. It's like sort of half of a, if I've got one knocking about, I shall just put that down for a second. You're looking at kind of half of what you get with an 18650 size wise. So there's an 18650. Just out of comparison there. So a lot of flashlights, you can get like a little converter tube, and you can just use 2 of these. So pop that to one side. So yeah, well done on the road. I think they're bringing out some good products. And I mean, I haven't got it here because I've got it downstairs and I carry it. The on the road M3 Pro, which is this, but they've added USB charging, and hallelujah, not only have they added a USB charging, but they've actually used USB Type-C. Thank goodness for that. Thank you very much on the road. You did it where other companies failed. Right, back to Klaris here. Mi1C. It's kind of a little niche one, this, because it doesn't use a throwy lens. It's got an aspherical lens. So let's have a look at that. Can you see how the glass comes up like a half a globe? So there's no reflector in there. You see it's dark down there. All the light is hitting this lens and it's spreading out. So if I turn it on, you can see the whole thing is a spill. So that's an interesting way of getting your light into the world. The only problem with that is distance is useless. So if you're walking the dog and the dog runs off and you go, ah, help, where's Bigfoot? And you try and use this, you're not getting reach because the light is uniformly spread out thanks to this lens. So up close, fantastic. There's no hot spot, but range poor. If you look at the website for this, you see some of the beam shots. I'm sure they've increased the gamma or something, because you know it looks like he's firing a laser beam like one of the X-Men, and I think, well, did that really come from this? Not that I'm suggesting a lying, but sometimes Photoshop can be deceptive. That's all I'm saying. So nice unit, nice and compact, and again I think this is using a CR123. It should be for the size anyway. Now it's a CR123, but if you notice, sorry, it's not, it's a 16340, same basic size anyway, but it has a micro USB built into the cell, and that's quite interesting. So rather than having the charging gubbins on here, it's in the top of the cell. So as you can see, there's the micro USB entry point, and it's a button top. So quite an interesting way of doing it. Of course, it means once this cell's gone, then you're back to using normal cells again. No more recharging for you. And the other irritating thing, they've gone the Olight route. You've got to put the cells in the wrong way around. Every other manufacturer, plus goes to the top, plus to the head, minus to the tail. Pretty simple, I would have thought anyway. But for whatever reason, Klaris have decided, no, we'll turn them all around. Why? There's obviously a reason for it. I'm not an electrical engineer, so I don't know, but Olight do the same thing. I'll show you. So you've got something like the S2 baton here. If we open this up, I shall show you. Take the cell out, and I'm pretty sure inside somewhere, I'm going to be proved wrong here, you see. It won't be in there. Where is it? I've just got a message there from Tyler doing Olight Mini is the same way, right? Yeah. Tyler, you're right. I think most of the Olights, for whatever reason, they put all the cells the wrong way around, and I'm trying to find it here. There it is. Sorry, stupid me, it's on the outside. So as you can see, plus to the bottom. Why? What's the benefit? I suppose, you know, because the only difference between Olight and the other ones, they use very similar components like the Cree LEDs. The only difference I really see is the fact that the cells go around the other way and Olight slap an extra $10 on the price of the unit. So if anyone knows what the reason for that is, I'd love to know, because I can't see any viable, you know, extra reason for that. But I do like Olight. I mean, I've carried this many times. In fact, I've dropped it quite a few. I don't know if you can see. Now you can't actually see, there's a few little dints there, but I've dropped it on the head here twice, but never had a problem. Rock solid. I really like the Olight. I just wish the prices were lower. So anyway, back to these ones. Astra Looks Kia One. Really, let's be honest. Again, do you agree with me? Is this just a copy of the Nitecore Tip? I would argue that it is. All they've done is they've swapped the buttons around. So on the Nitecore Tip, you've got power at the bottom, mode at the top. They've swapped it round. But they have added other features. You've got a slightly wider output there for the light, and you've got a red light, if I can get the camera to focus, and a UV light. I mean, UV light, I mean, God, you know, let's put it on and show you. Right, there's your normal light. Let's have a look. I've just had a message there from Mungo. Yeah, I have looked at the BLF lights. In fact, there's a BLF. I love that. BLF SE on the, which one's this again? I think it's the AS6. I love this light. And I've also got the Mammoth BLF QE. Again, I love this. Jimmy Max, who was a good support of the channel, loves that. Loves that light. He was just doing his attic recently and he absolutely loved it. But we will go over them if you bear with me. So back to this light. I mean, yeah, there's your main beam, and then you've got, if I can remember how to do it there. So you've got a UV ray there, which if you want to pretend that you're in CSI, you know, you can go around looking for fingerprints and looking for murders, but I certainly don't want to go looking for murders. And then you've got a red light function, if I can remember how to get it on. Of course, I'm showing how my ineptitude here. Trust me, it does work there. Red light. Jimmy Mack again is a big fan of red light. Red light's okay. It serves a purpose. I mean, if you go and check literature and look at military manuals and things like that, you'll see that red light does help with night vision. But it depends whether you're going from a dark light into a bright light or vice versa, or if you need to see detail, or if you need to see shapes. It gets very complicated very quickly, but it does certainly work. At the end of the day, you just want a low power output which doesn't affect your night vision, which I've discussed many times. So KC1, it's heavier than the Tip, but it's cheaper. So you've got to ask yourself, do you want this, which is probably going to be, you can run over in a car and not have a problem, whereas with this, you may not get that. And like I say, if you go and check out my review of this, it's quite funny. There's a guy from Russia having a go at me for shining it in the camera there. And I think there was someone from South America saying that my review was useless, absolutely useless. Why don't you go outside and shine it? And if he'd bothered to check at the end of the review, he would have noticed I did do that actually. Quite extensively. So maybe his computer crashed just before that came up on the screen. So there you go, there's your Astra Looks. Next one, back to Nitecore, tiny one here. There's things I like about this and there's things I don't like about this. So what do I like about this? It's tiny and it has built-in USB charging. Yeah, it's got one of those daft flaps that I'm not really a big fan of, but that's life. So, and again, micro USB. I'm sorry to harp on about it, but micro USB. Please, can we have Type C? I presume probably Type C is an over extravagance for something this small and cheap and compact anyway. Got a small battery in, but if you remember the review I did of this versus a copy version, it was quite interesting. The run times quoted by Nitecore, this far exceeded them. So well done, Nitecore. I applaud you for that, because too often do you get run times from manufacturers where they say this lasts an hour, and you check it and you think, well, no, it doesn't. Barely an hour, but well done. I mean, the big problem with this is, watch. You know, I talk about getting light in your eyes. Watch. Oh, look what happens. Because it's just using the dome, which is the plastic piece which goes over the LED. You get a very indiscriminate scatter of light. Yeah, it works for very close up, but it's coming back in your eyes. So is that not ruining night vision? You can get around it by holding it like that, and then what happens is, There you go. Right, I've just had another thing from Mungo here saying, that's bollocks. I find your reviews very good. Well, thank you. I mean, Mungo, I do appreciate all the comments, even the negative ones, because at the end of the day, I'm not perfect. I'm not an expert. And as anyone who watches my reviews in depth anyway knows, I make a few mistakes. But what generally happens is, if you notice, there's no jump cuts in my reviews. I sit down and I review a thing from start to finish for half an hour. There is no jump cuts, whereas some other channels, it's jump cut after jump cut after jump cut, and it becomes kind of annoying to me, especially because I do a lot of editing, that I notice these things, and I think sometimes it's better to just have one stream of consciousness. It's like talking to someone sitting at a table and you're getting a genuine review from me, and you know that I don't give you a load of bull, I just tell you how it is. So thank you for that support there, Mungo. Right, so like I say, cheap does the job, but like I say, flashes back in your face, which is a little bit annoying, so put that to one side, but it's cheap. Now, talking of cheap, here is the Astra Looks again. Astra Looks do some really cheap stuff, but good luck trying to find a manufacturer's website for them. So this is a little bit more chunky, if you notice. If you look at this, compare this to my Thrunite Ti3, which I carry on my keys, which I should have brought into the room, but I didn't. This is very similar. So it's a rotary action. So in order to use it, you rotorize it. I've just invented a word there. So you've got low, medium and high. Nice output, quite a nice tint actually for an Astra Looks. It's a little bit chunkier and heavier than I would prefer, but that's life. And the problem with rotaries is, in order to disengage the circuit, you need to loosen them. Now, the problem is, if they're not well manufactured, if you loosen it too much, what happens is, over time it gets knocked, and then what happens is, this happens. That comes off and the battery comes out. And now I have had that with the Ti3, where it comes out and the head falls off. You've got the battery in your pocket and this, and you go and you think, oh, where's my flashlight? Gone. So that's one problem with the rotary action. Unless this area is tight, you've had it. So you yearn tightness, I shall say, without trying to get too rude. So we'll put that to one side. So yeah, it's decent enough, a little bit too bulky, but decent price. In that range, still using the AAA battery, and again rotary action, but the rotary action on this is very tight, so it isn't going to come off, which I like. Now, if you notice, compare that to the Astra Looks. The Astra Looks have chosen to go for one of my favourite reflectors, the orange peel type. Now, the problem is, yes, I like an orange peel, but at this output, about 100 lumens, you're probably better off with a TIR, because you just want a bit of spread. You're not going to get a lot of throw anyway. You really aren't. So there's a nice little TIR on the Jetbeam. And another thing which I've mentioned many times before, and I'll mention it again with the Jetbeams, is the coating. I don't know what they do. It almost feels like those sort of French pans you get where they've got the ceramic coating. It's very thick and smooth. So I appreciate that. And like I say, the threads are pretty decent. So again, rotary action, but you don't get that rotary issue where it loosens itself off and comes off, and you're left with this bit and not the head, which is the important bit, but nice and tight. So they've done a good job. Yeah, the clip's cheap. Let's be honest, that clip's not very good. And it looks like it's starting to come off, but you know, I like the fact it's got multiple entry points there for key rings. So moving on quickly. Now here's an interesting one by, I'm going to call them Fitorch or Fitorch. Again, small unit, and it's got the daft USB flaps, which I don't like, and it's unfortunately a micro USB rather than a Type-C, but it's very compact with a deep carry clip here. Now the problem I have with this is, there you go, it heats up quite quickly, but it does have a large heatsink there. And I mean, if you go from the manufacturer's quotes, this is just using a tiny CR123, but according to the manufacturer, you should be able to get around 1,000 lumens out of this. Yeah, you may be getting close. You know, I'm not saying they're liars, but you may get close. And what they've chosen to do is, because you can get a good output, they've used a smooth reflector. So yeah, pretty intelligent way for them to do it. I actually agree with them that they should have gone for that sort of reflector. Because once you're getting 500 plus lumens, you need to start pushing that light out. So you either spread it or throw it, in my opinion. So put that to one side. Another unit which I was very impressed with this year, apart from, listen, battery rattle. So if you've got a baby, you can give it to the baby and then play with the rattle there. Apart from this battery rattle, I really like this. It's got a beautiful TIR lens, so excellent up close. and it works fantastic as a headlamp. So obviously for the headlamp function, you've got 2 rubber bits and a headband, and then this slots in. So this is a 90-degree type. And the other thing I loved on this one, not just all the sub modes you could have, which I really appreciate, and this is on special at the moment. I think on the Budget Light forum you'll find it on special. Look at the size of those heat sinks. For once, heat sinks that actually serve a purpose, because a lot of these heat sinks, to me, they look more cosmetic rather than having a purpose. So I appreciate that. So again, double click straight to table. Look at that, beautiful. And I like it. It's a nice warm tint, and you've got little running lights and beacon modes and all sorts of things. So I think Skilhunt have done an excellent job. I know Skilhunt brought out a standard flashlight, obviously not a 90-degree one, a non-headlamp version, which I might look at in the new year, but it all depends. I think they've just done a good job. For the price, you'd be mad not to get one. And I'm not being paid to say that. Again, all my opinions are honest. You know I'm not going to bull. Right, let's have a look at something else. So what's this one? This is the Thorfire. Kind of cheap, and in my opinion, it's a copy, to a degree anyway. They've got a different lens system, but it's a copy of the i3T EOS with them. Now they're both using AAA, but would you say that there's something very similar about them? Look, obviously the Thorfire is slightly longer and doesn't have as much output. This is going to give you a nice 180 lumens from a single AAA, which is extremely good. And I quite like the clip. It's not fully deep carry, but it's getting there. Clip on the Thorfire, yeah, not very good, but it certainly serves its purpose. And it's not a heavy unit anyway, so you don't really want to be worrying about that. I love a tail clicker. Now obviously they're starting to fall for this tactical malarkey where they start putting ridges on, saying you can jump out of a bush and attack people, and yeah, no you can't. Probably highly unlikely that's going to happen. If someone's going to attack you, you're better running off, in my opinion, unless you're trained, and even then it's a risk. So all these tactical things, you know, take them with a pinch of salt. But this is a decent unit, and it's quite solid. It's got a tube center section, so you can screw it top and bottom. I think it's got 3, is it? Tyler, I've just got a message there saying he never knew what these ridges were for. It depends who you ask. Some people will say that you can do that and then you can put it on a surface. I mean, that's not a good example. I need a flat surface. So if we use this, if you notice, you get a little, the light can still be seen, so you can use it as a marker. But generally what a lot of manufacturers will say is they'll say this is an attack ring and you can attack people with this and destroy them. Well, you know, can you really? The same goes for companies like Jetbeam. They call this, I think it's something like an attack ring. Again, you know, it depends. Having been in a few fights, it's not that easy. You don't just run up to someone and go whack and then they're dispatched within seconds. It just doesn't work like that. But it's certainly going to give you a chance, I suppose. So avoid all these tactical things. I just want a flashlight that works. So that's a pretty decent one, but I would prefer to go for the Olight, but we'll cover that in a second there. So put that to one side. So right, someone asked before, I can't remember whether it was Tyler or Mongo now, my mind's boggled about the BLFs. BLF just stands for Budget Light Forum, and Budget Light Forum is full of people who know more than I will ever know. They're certainly more knowledgeable than I am, and they've got very good specialist knowledge about electrics and things like that. So if you want to listen to someone who knows what they're talking about, go away from me and go to the Budget Light Forum. But as you're stuck here, I really like this. I got one of these as a gift for a family member who took it camping, and he said it was fantastic and he let the kids play with it. And he absolutely loved it. So I can completely agree with him. I like the tint. It's a nice orange peel reflector, which I think suits the output of this, which is heading, if you look at the literature, now depending on the battery you use, if you look at the literature, they're quoting up to 1600 lumens output, which it may get close to that. It's certainly over 1000. I would it's at least 1300, 1200, 1300. Beautiful, and it's a tail clicker, and it's open enough where you can get to it, but you've got enough of a surface here where you can tail stand it. So in other words, if you're using this in a tent or whatever, if you ignore that, which I've got there, you can actually stand it on a surface, which is a handy feature to have. And it means that the button's recessed enough where it's not going to get knocked. But I love this light. It's absolutely fantastic. And you can go through the modes. You can actually reverse by long holding and half pressing and things like that. beautiful. Never had a problem with this, rock solid. I use this as a benchmark with the S2, which I'm going to show you in a moment, which are very similar lights, but this is just slightly better. Beautiful light. I really like the BLFs. So here's the other benchmark one that I use, Convoy S2 Plus, very similar to the S2 and S3 for that matter. They didn't change a lot. So similar in that you have the tail there, and you can also stand it, but it's recessed enough where it's not going to get knocked. I would say this is a good starter light for anyone who wants to get into flashlights, or you want to buy for family members, because it's not overcomplicated. It's either on or it's off, and when it's on, you see you go through the modes, low, medium, high, low, medium, high. Now, for those who want more, you get into other modes. But for the basic person who's taking out the trash, walking a dog or camping, they don't necessarily want 14,000 modes and worrying about thermal top limits and things like that. So I think this is an excellent unit. I've dropped this a few times, but never had a problem. And if I remember rightly, I think that's got a glow-in-the-dark gasket. I call it a gasket, but it's not really for gas. Yeah, see that green section there. It's the same as the, I'm pretty sure that the lumintop does the same thing. So if I hold that down and let the light get into it, yeah, that's got like a little glow gasket there. It's more of a gimmick than anything else. The whole point is, if you've had that running and you put it down and you quickly go to it within the limit of this giving out its energy slowly, you can see it more quickly. Yeah, it kind of works. You're probably better off though getting a glowing tail section which glows similar to the S42 here, which has a pulsing glowing light there. That's kind of a parasitic drain on the battery, but it's not enough where it's an issue. And Mungo there's just saying he bought the Tool AA V2 after the review. Well, you know, I mean, I found it very hard to find anything wrong with this. It feels rock solid. Yes, I would prefer a deep clip, but it doesn't really matter because of the size. It's just going to hang about the bottom of your pocket. It's got a tail clicker. It can stand up. It's got glow-in-the-dark gasket. I find it extremely difficult to find anything wrong with this. And bearing in mind, it's just using a AA. If you use the right battery, which is the 14500, I think. If you stick in a 14500, which is exactly the same as a AA, but it uses a different chemistry, so it's a lithium ion rather than nickel metal hydride, or the alkaline version, you can get 650 lumens out of this. Now, I've tried this extensively outside in fields, and it's got enough output where you can really throw that. So for the size, extremely highly recommend that, but I'll put that to one side for a second. So like I say, the S2, good starter unit, simple, straightforward, just works. I really like that. And if you get that on deals, it's so cheap. Okay, what we got next? Olight. Well, like I say, Olight are a little bit pricey. So if you want to save money, you could essentially go and get an on the road, which does exactly the same thing for half the price, really. Olight, I never really understand is why you've got to put the batteries the wrong way around. I mean, I'm saying the wrong way around. There is no right or wrong depending on the design, obviously, but it's counterintuitive because you're so used to doing it the other way with all your other lights. I mean, it's got reverse polarity protection, that's the point, but it's got a nice clip. I was reading on some of the clips on the new version. So this is the S2 baton. I know the S2 V2, which is slightly shorter and has a better knurling. Someone was whinging saying, oh, the clip's rubbish, it's come off, it doesn't work and it's broken. So whether that's true or not, I don't know. I haven't had a look yet. They did send me like a deal package thing, but it was still a rip-off, so I just said no. But nice, decent. What I quite like about the Olights is they use quite thin walls on the flashlights. Look how thin that is, which means it's very light. I mean, obviously the battery's going to take up most of the weight, but very, very light. And I appreciate that. So they're quite nice to carry. Even an 18650 can be an EDC, just hanging about in pockets, no problem. And again, it has the side clicker, but it's not recessed enough where you can't knock it. You can knock it. So what I tend to do is put the clip over, and then it becomes impossible to press the button by accident. So double click for turbo, bang. Quite nice output. The only problem again with the Olights is you have to get cool white tint. You don't get an option, which is a little bit annoying. Sometimes what they'll do is they'll say, well, you can have a warmer tint, but you've got to get this special edition with titanium, and it's even more expensive. No thanks. So I don't really want to be ripped off. But Olight, can't complain. Pretty decent. Right, now I want to look at this and this together. I have actually done a review on the tip, but it's probably not going to go live until the 1st of next year, because it got stuck in the pipe, let's say. But it's very, so let's look at this first, whilst I just have a quick drink. If you, a second here. That's better, right. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is the Nitecore. Now I call it the Tiny because it is tiny, and I presume they're calling it that because it's smaller than the tip. The problem is, because it's smaller, you get less battery. So you're getting about 500 milliamp battery in there, but you're only getting something like a 280 milliamp in there. But this has more output. That's something like 350, and this is about 360, 380. And they use different methods for getting that light in the world. This is a TIR, and this almost uses like a smooth reflector covered by what I'm going to term a frosted, it's not a frosted optic because it's not, I suppose you could call it a frosted optic. It certainly diffuses the light slightly. But back to the one we're supposed to be looking at, you can instant press for turbo, which is lovely. And this doesn't have electronic lockout. What they've decided to do is have 2 modes, which I think might be a little bit silly for people who want flashaholics. So you have a daily mode, which I think this is in daily mode. So if you turn that on, so if you imagine the situation, okay? There, if I can turn it on. I've broken it. There, right. So if you imagine the situation, you've turned this on, okay? There. You've turned this on and you climbed up a ladder in the dark, and this is hovering, and you're changing a fuse, and it becomes very difficult and nothing can go wrong, and then this turns off. Why? Well, because of daily mode, after 30 seconds it turns off. Now that's, can you imagine? You're up a ladder doing something and that turns off, and then whoa, crunch, you know, straight flat on your arse. Well, the problem with that is, to most users, they're not going to go rummaging through the manual saying, why is it doing that? It must be broken. To people like us who are flashaholics, we know that you can change the mode by just pressing both buttons. A couple of flashes, you're in continuous mode. And obviously in continuous mode, when you turn it on, it's on. When you turn it off, it's off. It stays on. But not a lot of people will know that. So if you're buying this as a gift for someone, you might want to point that out and say, or change it to continuous mode before you give it to them. Again, it's USB chargeable, which is handy, but it's got one of these daft flaps which don't really work. They work to keep dust out, but they don't necessarily work to keep water out. But should I be... The problem is, I keep complaining, saying everything should be IPX8, everything should be IPX8 because it's waterproof. Maybe I'm being overkill, because if this is hanging on your keys, who's going to go jumping into waterfalls like that scene on, you know, Predator where Arnie's escaping from the alien? Probably not many people, but I want to have that feature. I want to have that way. I don't have to worry. I mean, I've been out running in the middle of nowhere where I thought it's definitely not going to rain today, nothing can go wrong, it won't rain, and it has rained. So you can't always rely on the fact that you're not going to get things wet or fall into rivers and things like that, especially if you're camping. But you probably wouldn't take this camping. This is a keychain. It's supposed to hang on your keys. So maybe I'm overthinking it, but I don't know if they could have had a screwed section or some section where it would keep it better. Right, I've just had a message from Mungo there. Emisar D4, I'm preferring Toykeeper's ramping interface. He's right. A ramping interface is so much easier instead of having 5,000 settings. So Mungo's completely right. So if you're using something like the D4 here, which I've got physically locked out, there you go. So you turn it on, ramp up or ramp down. How simple is that? And if you buy that as a gift for people, it really makes a difference. Jimmy Mack was after a light for family just recently, and he was considering S42. Now the UI in this is a nightmare. I'm a flashaholic and I can't stand it. You're up, you're down. It's turbo, it's not turbo, it's half turbo. Right now you're in turbo, you can't turn it off. If you want to turn it off, you've got to hold this down. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's like being on a game show where you're trying to work out some sort of mind-meltingly difficult puzzle. It spoils the light, because other than that, it's quite decent. Whereas on the S43, one version up, you turn it on and it works. I mean, I think I've got this locked out. 1, 2, 3, 4. There. So, see, it ramps up and it ramps down. How how beautiful is that? So Toy Keeper deserves a pat on the back for is fantastic. I think this uses what they term Norsel 1.3. Now it's just a name, it's just a code name, but that's the name for the ramping interface. And Mungo's just saying that you never know when you're going to get caught out. He's completely right. So I would rather have that insurance policy. And Mungo's also saying zebra lights. I don't own any yet. I'm still trying to get some review units. So if they'll send me some, I shall certainly have a look, because I've never seen a bad review on a zebra light, never. And Tyler's ordered the S43 and he can't wait. Tyler, I think you're really going to enjoy this, because ramping interface is beautiful, everything works, it's just a fantastic. I mean, the only thing that's missing is knurling, but do you really need it? I mean, bear in mind I'm using a shorter tube here, but I do have the, I think that's it there, that's the 18 there. That's the 18650 version there. So bear in mind I'm using a much shorter tube there, but even with that on, it's perfect. The one with the copper here in the head, the only issue you may have is it's a little bit heavy, but the standard version certainly doesn't seem to suffer from that. But I really like that. I think Astra Looks deserve a pat on the back. Yeah, it's got one of my most hated features, but it's, yeah, at least they've put in a recessed section there for the charging, so I appreciate that. So let's pop that to one side. So back to this, decent enough, and I'll compare it to this. The tip is a little bit more rugged. You are getting, I mean, there's no daft flap on this, but if you notice the clip there, you can actually put over to prevent it from getting in, you know, soil and things like that. Metal on the top, but beware, it might look it, but I don't think it is. I think that's plastic on the bottom there. It doesn't have that cooled feel of metal to it there. But I think this does a pretty good job, and it stood the test of time. They redid it in 2017, and you can get a high CRI version. CRI just stands for Color Rendering Index. I mean, here's a question. People can comment now. How interested are you in high CRI LEDs? I appreciate them for outdoors, but indoors, I'm not really that. It doesn't have that much of an effect. I mean, you can put a comment there if you want, but it's nice to have. All color rendering index means is you're getting less of a flat return. In other words, if you had a color chart here and you fire this at it, you're going to get a more muggy version than the high CRI. With high CRI, it renders that perfectly, so you're getting all those different colors. But most people, especially if you're going to get it as a gift for someone, they're not going to really realize that anyway. But it depends. Tyler's putting there exactly indoor high CRI. Okay, yeah. So I think they've done a good job on this. Really good. Right, Mungo's put at the risk of getting lynched, I actually prefer cool around 6,000K. Well, Mungo, I've always said nobody can tell you what tint you should get. Nobody can tell you that, because you're the one who's going to be using it. And I know exactly what you mean. If I'm using the S2, that only comes in cool, okay? But it's got quite a nice look to it, and it seems to, I don't know what it is, but when you hit about 6,000K and upwards, it almost looks like you're getting more light. Now, I don't know why that is. Whereas on the other, I don't know why, maybe it's just to my eyes, but on the sort of warmer tints, it seems like you're getting a little bit less. It may just be the appearance. But nobody can tell you what the right tint is. It's entirely up to you. Sometimes I like a cool tint, especially indoors or if I'm working on machinery and stuff. And then other times, especially if I'm outside, I quite like to use a warmer tint. I just think it provides a better look on grass and leaves and things like that. I just got a message there. Now, I apologise, I didn't catch your name there, saying nice suitcase. Yes, this is my Men in Black suitcase just for flashlights, which I'm slowly emptying here and doing some little cheeky reviews. Right, here's an expensive one, which this is actually on loan. I must give it back sometime. So this is the Olight, again, decent high quality piece of kit here with a side clicker. You've got the M2T Warrior. Now again, listen to the name and look at the tactical aspect of it. And you've got the little serrations here suggesting you can go around ninjaing people and things like that, but I wouldn't consider this an offensive weapon. I quite like this unit. It should be locked out if I remember, so if I hold that down, yeah. So you've got different outputs, and then you've got straight to turbo. Now, it's got quite a strange button. It's not like a clicky one. Mungo's just put there, I like Olights but the dollars. You're completely right, completely right. I like them. They're well made. You get a 5-year warranty, but I just wish they were cheaper. It makes me laugh. You see, you sometimes see them on sale and you think it's still a little bit pricey. So even on sale, they're a little bit over the top, but that's the market that they go for, and they're generally all cool white. This is a orange peel reflector. I like this. This is giving you a massive output. Turbo is fantastic, and you can go straight to strobe if you hold it. But single click, they would suggest that's tactical. I mean, when they say tactical, you know, they're presuming you're going to be holding this at eye index, for example, you know, and using a handgun, things like that. But it's hard enough pointing a gun and getting on target as it is without doing it at night with a flashlight, so you leave that to the professionals. But it's an interesting unit, nice and solid, quite large. I wouldn't necessarily consider this a EDC because it's too big, and because of the price you probably wouldn't take it out of the house anyway. You'd have it in a glass case, so if there's a way they could sort of cheapen this down, it would be appreciated. So clip isn't fully yeah, it does the job. It's quite light actually, but okay, it's multi-purpose, and I appreciate that. And it's got a nice reflector. If you look at the review of this, it's got a fantastic output for an orange peel. It almost looks like a thrower. What's this from Mungo? They're saying, oh, Tyler Durden saying you can get some good promo lights from Mad Max. Yes, Mad Max is decent. I think it's from Germany or Austria. And I didn't catch that other one there, that other message there, because they're only still on the screen for a limited period of time, so I do apologise. Right, here's the hot rod. Right, so let's have a look at this. So this is the Emisar D4. Now there's a D1, which is a throwy, bigger head version. This is obviously using a quad emitter. I went for the non-Nitecore. Nitecore gives you a better tint and colour rendering index, but much less of an output, whereas I just wanted maximum output on this, and I think it does a beautiful job. If you check the review, you can see it's absolutely fantastic, and it uses a ramping interface. Generally, because it runs so hot, you don't want to burn your leg. You're better off physically locking it out like that. It does have a lockout function, but I'll lock it out like that and it won't function. And then when you do want to use it, I mean, it seems a bit silly, but it's safer. So you hold it on, ramp up, bang, you can see how bright that is. It's overexposing everything, and then ramp down. The only issue with this light is heat. But stop complaining and just ramp it down. You know, that's what I say to people. People say it's too hot, there's going to be fires. Well, don't run it at that temperature. Do you really need that output? Unless you live in a lighthouse and the bulb's gone, don't panic. So, you know, there's two sides of the argument. It's too powerful, some say, and too hot, and others say, well, don't worry about it. So I'm on the camp of don't buy this as a gift because it's a little bit too much to handle. It's in the same way you wouldn't buy someone who's never used a motorcycle. You wouldn't buy them the fastest motorcycle on the road, would you? Because they'd go flying off on a turning circle and probably die. So you would do the same with this. You would think, well, okay, if someone's just a starter, I'm certainly not going to get them this. This is more of a specialist item. So we'll turn that off. So really like this. And as I said in the review, yeah, the clips, they charge you $3 for a clip or something, which is naughty. And the clip's not particularly good, but okay, that's life. You're going for a hot rod here rather than functionality. Tyler's saying, you know, D4 is the best light for the price. I find that hard to disagree with. It's tiny. You can EDC it. Mungo's son uses his D4 every day and just lower the levels. Yeah, you're right. And it's got quite a nice recessed button. If you look, it's recessed enough where you can't press it unless you fully engage it, which is nice. But again, I lock mine out anyway physically. But I really like it for the price. It's only like $35 now from the International or the Mountain Warehouse or whatever you call it. So pretty good. And quality's on par with Olight in Mungo there. And Mungo, you're right, because I mean, if you look at it, look at the thickness there. That's almost like a double wall. It's just there's no battery rattle. It's got proper thick springs, well made. I like it. I think they've done a good job. It's a shame that you don't see these in retail stores, but I suppose it's because it's more of a specialist item. But anyone who's in the know knows that this is a decent light. So let's move on because time is getting on here. So we have the Olight. Ooh, let's have a look here. I can never remember this name because it's too long and convoluted. It's the i3T EOS AAA. Now I'll prove that. That's quite nice. It's almost like a full is that copper or brass? It looks brassy to me. But it just uses a AAA. Now I have an Anyloop Pro in here, but from a AAA, now most of these AAA lights you're going to get between 100 and 120 lumens, but on this one you get 180 lumens. Now how they're able to do that, Mungo was having a look at this on Amazon. Mungo, I would add it to your wish list, but don't buy it and wait until they drop the price, because they sometimes do that. They'll drop it by like sort of $5 and then get it, because it's quite nice as a gift as well. It's a tail clicker. It's got a nice clip that actually works and quite solid. And because it's a non-Cree, I think it's a Philips or something like that. It uses a different LED, and because of that, you're getting 180 lumens, which is pretty good. The only thing that people might not like about this is it's only 2 modes. So you've either got low or 180. So you might think, well, can I not have an in-between or a sub-lumen? But I mean, for an ADC, you're probably not going to be using this camping or during a critical military mission. So do you really need night vision and things like that? So you probably don't need to worry about that. So it's either high or low, and most people prefer that. And it's got quite a nice TIR lens, which works. In fact, is that a TIR? I think about it. It may be, but it's quite an open TIR. It doesn't affect the beam too much. So very nice, good work, Olight. Here's an interesting one which I got. And if you remember in the review, I don't know if it's still there, but there's a little bit of black on the LED there, which I wasn't very happy about. You can see it there at the top section of the LED. It's hard to see, I realise this. There, you can see it there. Apart from that, I quite like this. The beam pattern's a little bit strange. It's got a distinct spot, but it certainly doesn't affect it, and it allows you to throw it nicer. Look at the height of that, it's pretty decent. If I compare that to the Olight S2 baton, it's actually shorter. So that's pretty impressive. And bearing in mind, not only is it shorter, but they've been able to fit in USB charging. So that's quite nice. Yes, I'm going to complain, oh, it's a flap and I don't like micro USB, so I'm going to keep my gob shut for now. But bearing in mind, it also has another feature. Here's the cable for it. Now what you can do is, it's got like a pass-through. So Tyler's just saying the i3E CO EOS copper 120 lumens, great gift. Yeah, it looks beautiful in the copper. It really looks classy. So I agree with that. $20. Oh, Tyler's saying it's $20 for the i3. That's pretty good price, especially in full copper. Tyler, have you got one, and can you tell me if it's heavy? Because obviously this one ain't heavy, but sometimes copper can add a bit of weight. I presume it doesn't add too much, but I'll be interested to know. So here's the cable you can use to charge this. So you can charge it in a way which allows you to use this as a power bank. So it's quite interesting if you wanted to charge your... it goes in reverse. You can put power in, but you can also take power out if you wanted to charge a USB device such as a phone. So interesting. Follow have put out some good stuff. I recently looked at their charger, which I said had a few issues. So yes, it works, but if you look closely, it'll only charge lithium ion, which is a bit naughty, because a lot of the batteries I've got, especially the smaller ones, use the nickel metal hydride, so it's a little bit naughty. So when you compare that to Olight's version of the magnetic charger, you don't have to have the terminals the right way around, and it charges both batteries. The plus side for this is you can use a pass-through, and again you can use a cell to charge things, and it charges faster. This charges at around 1000 milliamp hours rate, whereas this only does it at 750. Now bear in mind, when I say that, they don't necessarily, like, that's not going to run at 1000 milliamps charging a battery through its entirety. It kind of peaks and then goes down and things like that. They use charging cycle rates and things like that. So I don't want to get too bogged down in that, but you're not going to get 1000 all the time, but that certainly will be faster. But I think that the Olight does a better job. I would personally buy the Olight. So I'll put that to one side, and I'm just going to have another drink because I've been talking now for 50 minutes. That's better. Okay, right, what else have we got here? So let's have a look. So the next one is the Jetbeam. Now this is the Jet IIMK. Nice little unit, rotary action, sort of like what I call a stubby. It uses the CR123, and it's got a nice orange peel reflector there. It's got quite a nice tint actually. It's more of a warm tint, which I think I went for on the options, but that's a pretty good output for a small CR1. And it's stubby. I like it. The only thing I didn't like too much was the way that the clip pushes against the rotary action, which is a bit weird. I don't know why they couldn't. There's got to be a way around that, because that's just going to wear the paint off and look cheap after a while. But that's how they've chosen to do it. But decent enough. And like I say with the Jetbeams, I like the finish that they're using. It's almost like a ceramic. Okay, so next unit. Here we have, now I really like this. It feels rock solid. All the, you know, every single bit of this feels well machined. The clip, I would prefer a deep carry, and it's very weak. But because of the size, I don't think that matters too much, because it's going to reside in the bottom of your pocket. It's small enough. Now, even though this only uses a AA battery, now you can use normal alkalines or the nickel metal hydrides. If you're able to put in a 14500, which I think should be in here. So 14500 it's the same form factor as a AA. It's still a AA battery. So for example, there's some normal alkali AA batteries like Duracell and things like that. But the chemistry of the 14500s uses lithium ion, and it's pumping 3.7 volts instead of 1.5. So what this unit is able to do, now bear in mind this is made for this, so don't put that in. Now Mungo's saying, do you notice a massive difference between nickel metal hydride and the 14500? Yeah, I do, because the nickel metal hydrides, if I've got one knocking about, I do have, let's have a look. There's some nickel metal hydrides, AA. Now there is a big difference. So if we'll look at that now, so take out a nickel metal hydride and I shall show you. We'll do a live demo. So there's a nickel metal. Okay, so let's look at the specs here. Now I'm using an Eneloop Pro here, high capacity rechargeable. So there you can see nickel metal hydride. So if we look very carefully though, 1.2 volts. Okay, so keep that in your head. So if we put that into the tool, so 1.2 volts. Okay. Yes, I know, you're right, Mungo. I've got it in the wrong box, but that, you know, I'm a cheapskate. Okay, so if we run that there, that's its maximum. So you're getting an okay output there. Okay, so that's 1.2 volts. Now if we compare that to a battery which is exactly the same size, but it's using a different battery chemistry. So remember I said, 1.2 volts. So let's look closely at this. Can you see what's there? 3.7 volts. Aha, I wonder what difference that makes. Right, let's have a look. You're now on high. Oop, have I put that in the wrong way around? No. Did I lock that out, or have I got fluff in? Let's have a look. I've probably blown the battery. Let's have a look. Let's get that on there. There you go. There, right, okay. So if we go through the modes now, so you've got low, medium. Now look at high now, look how much brighter that is. With the 14500, you can get 650 lumens out of a AA battery. That's pretty impressive. That's a pretty good output. You know, I would argue that that's pretty decent for this size. But bear in mind that you really need to only use the 14500s in a unit that's rated for a 14500. That's no problem, Mungo. I'm here to help. I just help people out with the lights here. So, you know, there's not a lot I can think which I don't like about this other than the clip. I think they've done a beautiful job. It's got one of these daft, you know, gaskety things, if I can get it to work. There you go. Right, if I let the light build up a little bit, there you can see it's, you know, you've got one of these glow-in-the-dark things here. A little bit more gimmicky than anything else, but nice to have, and it's got a good tail, a nice solid tail clicker, and you can stand it up as long as it's not very windy. So moving on, what have we got here? S42. You know what? This was a real disappointment. There's so much to like about this. It's got a nice clip. And if you are an action hero fan and you watch Lethal Weapon and things like that, and The Last Action Hero, you can put the death hammer in and jump around like an idiot. But for everyone else, you can just use this as a flashlight. But joking aside, I like this. Yes, it's got one of these daft flaps that don't really work, but the problem is the UI was an absolute nightmare. So, I mean, I'm not going to go through it totally here because it's going to bore people, but you can't use it until you hold that down. Right, now you've held that down, now you can turn it on. But you can't double click unless you... I'm not going to go through it because you really need to go and see my review where I concisely take the UI to bits. It's bloody useless. it's almost as if some guy at a bench has said, yeah, that'll do, and he's written it all down. He's went, right, that's perfect. I purposefully carried this for more than a week, every day, and I used it every day to force myself to like it, because I thought I want to be fair here. There's no point in me doing reviews and pretending that I've reviewed it properly without trying it out, and I forced myself to use it. Even after more than a week, I still, every time I took this out, my brain was thinking, right, I've got to hold that. Have I held that? Right, is that running? Right, I'm in turbo. How do I turn it off? Oh, you're in turbo, so you can't turn it off. You've got to change modes, then press. You shouldn't have to feel like you're getting a migraine to operate a flashlight. That's my personal opinion. I disliked the UI, and I think it was a missed opportunity. Everything else I liked. I think they did a good job, but the UI just totally let it down. They should re-release this with a Toy Keeper ramping interface or something, because they've just ruined it. Conversely, if you get the S43, which is up, and Mungo's just saying it looks a lot like the A6. You're right, it does. In fact, if we compare it, where's the A6? Let's compare them. Ah, you're completely right. It's very, very similar. It's very similar, in fact, if not the same blinking clip. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the same clip. The only thing I don't like about these, and I'll show you on these clips, is this. If I can get a piece of paper. Right, here's a piece of paper. Okay, here's your pants pocket. So it comes up here. And then, now here's the problem I have. What happens is, that should slide up no problem. It tends to hit this bit. Now, who's ever going to use half a clip? Not many people, eh? So really, that gets in the way, and then you have to pull it out and hold it up and push it up to get the deep carry function. That, to me, just gets in the way. So I think they should either get rid of that or bend it down. Olight have done it perfectly. If I can find the Olight. There it is. See how they haven't got the little daft bit on. Mungo's saying he has exactly the same, and I think you're right. Mungo, Astra Looks did do the A6, I'm sure. Different manufacturers pop in and do these. Right, Cycling Sore Thumb saying, I'm about to order a follow-off charger for bike packing with my dynamo setup. Dynamo to converter to pass-through. Sorry, I couldn't read that fast enough before it went. Cycling Sore Thumb. How did you get a sore thumb cycling? That's what I want to know. Did you fall off? Which follow-off are you ordering there? Because I've just looked at, there's the follow-off, I think it's the A1, which I looked at, and I would stress that, remember, it only charges lithium ions, so bear that in mind. Cycling Sore Thumb, that's a point worth noting, and obviously it's got a polarity issue where you have to have them the right way around, but it will warn you with a red light there. I know Jimmy Mac ordered a follow-off charger, and you can get the larger 4 bays, but I'm yet to have a look at one of them. Right then, so moving on. Mungo's put Shimano thumb quick shifter. Yes, the Shimano gears there. Okay, so you're probably right. Aye. So S43 was a massive jump up from the S42. Beautiful ramping interface, as people have mentioned on here in the comments. They're completely right. I totally agree with them. It flickers momentarily to let you know you've gone as high as it'll go or as low as it'll go. It works beautifully. I can't think of a bad thing to say about this. I would even recommend this as a gift. And then obviously if you want to go straight to turbo, 2 clicks. It doesn't get easier than that. The only thing is, if you're going to go for the version which I've gone for, which has the copper. Now I do apologise, in my review I kept saying brass. That's because I come from the north of England, where it's all about brass and muck and things like that. So I do apologise for that. It's copper. That's the element which is used here, which is an excellent heat sink, and it looks quite nice. And you get people who say, I want to build up a patina, and it's all about how it looks. And yeah, they're right, it looks beautiful. What's Mungo saying here? Loved your review, but worth having as I have the Emisar D4. Now that's an interesting question. Mungo, you've got a lot of interesting questions. So if we compare the two, so size-wise, I mean, I'm using a shorter tube, bear that in mind. I mean, that's using a full 18650. I would say the output on this is better. They both use a ramping interface. That's slightly older, this is newer, but they do exactly the same thing. Very, very, very similar. It's a different, do you know what? I don't know the answer to that. I'm going to be honest and say I don't know. I don't know whether I would get the Astra Looks or the Emisar. That's an extremely good question, but I'm not egotistical enough to suggest that I know the answer to that, because they've both got the same interface. They both use a quad emitter. I think the only difference probably would be is, I think the TIR lens on this is possibly slightly better, whereas on this one you're getting a tiny little bit of flower petaling. Now when I talk about flower petaling, what I'm talking about is the beam profile. You get little, but I mean that's not the end of the world, is it? I mean, if you know what that is to your eyes, it's not an issue. So this is slightly wide, the Emisar is slightly wider, as you can see. Output slightly better. I would say the spread on this is slightly better, the output's slightly better, it's more fun. Not that that should come into it. It's an interesting question. You've stumped me there. I mean, I'm not without checking, I can't tell you, but I think because this has come down in price, you're probably going to pay a similar price anyway. I would go for the Emisar because I love it. It's an excellent, you can EDC this, it does everything. You've got the sun in your hand if you need it, but it's got the lower levels, beautiful ramping interface. This you could suggest is a copy. I mean, yeah, you're getting USB charging, but that's not the end of the world. Most people, put it this way, most people who own one of these have a charger, I would argue anyway. So do you really need USB charging? So there's one thing to say. And I love this here, it's beautiful. Yeah, Mungo's saying there that Astra looks better for non-flashaholics. You're completely right. I know Jimmy Mack bought an S43, I think it was with the 18650 tube. Yeah, it's longer, but he bought it as a gift for someone and they loved it. So yeah, I think that's a sensible point. Very, very intelligent there. Cycling Sore Thumb saying, I take 4 18650s bike packing, 2 chargers, Anker batteries feel, yeah, you're right. I mean, I used to use an Anker. I don't have it knocking about. I think I gave it away, but they do sometimes fail. I know the light went on my Anker charger, even though Anker is a decent company. So I don't know what happened there. Now I use a cheapy Power Locus from China, and it does exactly the same job. So what's Mungo saying here? Protected 18650s. I think I use unprotected. I think I use, I'm pretty sure it's a Samsung 30Q. It's probably unprotected. I'm pretty sure they are, right? So it's a Samsung 30Q. I never have any problems because I'm quite confident on the 30Q and their ability to hold quite a high output. I think it'll do a continuous of 20 amps. I'm quite confident that I don't need it protected on this, and I just use a flat top. So I've never had a problem with the Samsungs. I sometimes use the Nitecore batteries. So we'll pop that on there. Now I'll unlock that. Tyler Durden saying, where should I buy my batteries from? I can cook a roast with my S43 later. You're completely right, it is very hot. Well, Tyler, tell me where it is you are and I'll tell you where I would probably get my batteries from. I know I've been using a company called fogstar.co.uk to get some of my batteries. Now, the reason why I've been using them is because they're very upfront. Now, I'm not paid by them to say this, but you can check yourself. Tyler's in the USA. I think for USA is, if I remember the name rightly, it's something like Orbitronics. If someone can chime in on that, I'm pretty sure Orbitronics or something like that. Jimmy Mack was saying that's where he gets his from, and they give you like a data sheet. As I was saying with Fogstar, I use them because they independently test the output and how long you can output at that range and things like that. Because you've got to be careful. A lot of people buy these vape cells, which will say 20 amps, which is great on a vape. Now, how long does it take to vape? You hold it down and you have a vape, right? 20 amps for what, 3 seconds? Whereas on a flashlight turbo, how long are you going to be running that? So you need to be sure that that cell can do that output for a vast period of time. So if you're running that on turbo like that, you need a decent battery that can handle that draw. Otherwise, what happens is the resistance then becomes quite high and it can shorten the life of the cell. Even though you could argue this is shortening the life of the cell. So Cycling Saltham saying, only come on your, have you covered the H6? Yes, I have done the H65. Yes, so but we'll look at that now. Here's the H65. I loved this. I absolutely loved it. This is probably one of the best lamps I've ever used. I've used it for, excuse me, camping. Our Cycling Saltham doesn't like the flash modes though. Yeah, I mean, do you really need the flash modes? There's 3 main modes on this. So if you press it in, there you've got your main light, which is a smooth reflector, so you get a nice bit of distance, but it's also got quite a wide spread. I think it's 180 degrees off the top of my head, which is, you can see, look, as I hold that down, look how wide that comes out, which is what you need for a headlamp, because the whole point of headlamps is you're working up close, generally anyway. I mean, for fishing and stuff like that, looking at rocks and cycling especially, you need a bit of distance. Mungo saying it needs ramping. Yeah, I can understand where you come from, Mungo, but I would also argue that there's your different modes there. So low, medium, high, mega high, and you've got turbo as well. But does it really need ramping? Because you've got all of them. Second thought, I'm saying, as a cyclist and a camper, I need a consistent flash, not SOS or strobe. That's a good point, actually. A lot of flashlights come with what's called a bike mode. Now, the implementation of bike modes different between different manufacturers. Some have like a solid beam, then a few flashes. Some have just a few flashes, then nothing, then a few flashes. So it's very inconsistent. So cycling sore thumb, what would be your preferred flash rate or flash strategy? Do you prefer it to be on, off, on, off? Because I don't do a lot of cycling myself, you see, so that's why I'm asking someone who does. So like I say, there's your main mode, and you've got your different sub modes, and then if you hold it, you've got a auxiliary light, which I've loved. I really like that, especially for walking. It's just enough to get stuff done. Now that happens to be a high CRI, and it's quite a warm tint, so beautiful for nature and things like that up close. And then if you hold it down, you've got red light, so you can pretend you are, you know, Splinter Cell or something like that. So interesting feature. I have used that on night shoots, and it does work. Cycling sore thumb saying the only other flash it's on is too slow. Yeah, okay, yeah, you're probably right. It's a shame that, because I love this unit, and it's got built-in USB charging, which is behind a covered bit here. You take that off. 18650. So Mungo's saying slower flashing like a standard LED road bike light. Yeah, I can see what you mean. You don't necessarily want some daft strobe for you know, attacking ninjas and things like that. But I really like this. I found it very difficult to find any problems with it other than the price. I'll put that to one side. So let's move on here. So what we've got here is the Zan Flare, which I hadn't heard of till I looked at this. I mean, you could argue you've got this and this. It's very similar to the Olight Warrior, if you look. But obviously big difference in length, much longer, but it's got quite a nice deep throwy bowl there. So if I turn it on, there's your different modes, and then you've got on off with the tail here. Quite nice. Now unfortunately they've gone for one of these Zan Flare. So Mungo's saying, how do you rate Zan Flare? I think the button feels cheap because that's plasticky, but other than the button, no problems. The feel to me like a budget light, but this one has a secret. So you see this knurled bit here, if you spin this slightly and pull it down, aha, and it says, oh, go that direction. Okay, I will keep going. Aha, right, what we've got here, there, USB charging. Yeah, it's micro USB, which I don't like, but okay, I appreciate the fact it's there, and that's one reason why this is longer than the Olight. But Zan Flares feel cheap, but they work. But they feel cheap in a good way, as in like the Convoys. Yeah, they're cheap, but they work. I've certainly got no issues with this, other than this ridiculous. That's supposed to be like a little death hammer. So Mungo says he prefers that charging cover. Yeah, I agree with you. In exactly the same way, if I can find it under the pile of flashlights here, in the same way that the Klaris has done, it's behind a threaded O-ring section. And Mungo's saying window breaker. Well, yeah, they term this a window breaker, but if you've ever tried breaking like a car window, especially if you're in a panic and you've got to aim and get exactly that point on, and to be honest, I think that's steel. What you need is something vastly harder than the surface that you're whacking it against. I don't think it's a tungsten carbide. No, it looks, generally tungsten looks almost like leady, as in its grey colour, whereas that looks just like a piece of I mean, it might be a high carbon steel, I don't know, but trying to get that exactly on, if you're panicking and back, you know, you're better off just trying the door. Try the door, that might work. Right, moving on. Here's quite an interesting one, and the review for this one isn't even up yet, so I think that'll either be up on next few days or a week. So it's the Roofus. So you may not be aware of this one. So this one has a miraculous fingerprint sensor on it, which is very interesting to see. So it's using a touch interface, so I'll turn that off there. So it's not a rotary. So Mungo's saying, ooh, looking for a new keychain light. I could recommend this one. It's very similar in its output and size to the Klaris. but it's got cool features. So you've got like a running light, which you can put that somewhere and leave it as like a beacon almost. And then if you want to turn it on, you just hold with a finger, and then you've got different modes. You go through them like that. So the review for this one will be up in probably a few days. But I really like this, and it's a nice new feature. It even has e-lockout. So for e-lockout, you hold a normal finger, hold it, and flash, flash, flash. Right, that's now locked out. You can't turn it on. And then to unlock it, you hold for 3 seconds. That's it, back on, and then off again. It's got a step down, which I think is quite sensible though. Sorry for coughing there. I hope no one's wearing headphones. So it's the Roofus TC1, but like I say, I don't want to go too far in it because I've got the review up soon. So very interesting, and I appreciate the fact that they have tried something new. Actually, something funny about this. I'll see if I can find the box. There's one. Roofus. Now, why does it come in a paracetamol box? That looks suspiciously like a paracetamol box. So I don't know whether there was a company going out of business who said, look, we've got plenty of paracetamols. Can you use 1,000 boxes? But very interesting unit, and I appreciate the fact they've tried something new. So battery, please. The battery on this is a 10180, and I'll show you how big the 10180. You can't take it out. So to charge full metal, you open it like that, micro USB, but you can't open it any further. So, and I think they've missed a trick here. This recessed section, they should have put an O-ring in, but it's an 181080, I think. I'll show you the size of the battery, which is inside that. It's exactly the same as the Klaris, but you can't get to it. So they are rating it as a 10180, which is a 3.7 volt. So very interesting. It's a lithium ion, so that's lithium ion as well, but you can't get to it. But I'd never heard of Roofus before. I got to have a look at that one, so I think they did a good job. Nice TIR lens, good spread, and quite a nice tint. It's on the cool side, but again, as has been mentioned, some people are saying, you know, they prefer a cool tint. Good. No one can tell you what tint you should be using. Right, let's move on quickly because time is running out. Okay, Jetbeam, this is their tactical one, so you're supposed to run around and attack people and things like that, but in real life you're going to use it to take the garbage out. So the only thing I didn't like about this was how you change modes, so that looks like a button but it isn't. So how on earth do you change modes? And then that doesn't work because you've got to unlock it. So you unlock that and then it goes on or off, but it's full. So in order to change the setting, what you've got to do is you've got to unscrew this a bit, turn it on, and then now you can go through the modes, if I remember. That's it there. So you've got momentary, yeah, it goes through the different modes, flashes, and why have you got to unscrew a bit, which ruins waterproofing in order to use modes, because other than that, you can only use momentary turbo. It's a strange idea. I think what they've tried for here is, they've thought, okay, this is tactical. You're probably only going to want one setting, and you want it to reliably always be on that setting. And if you don't, you can start mucking around with unscrewing bits. And so it's a strange way of doing it. Now, I don't understand why I've done that, but I like the finish on this. Never had a problem with Jetbeams. The only thing I don't like about this is nice heavy metal until you get to this section, and it's a piece of plastic. They've tried to make it look the same as that, but it's just plastic. So and you can lock it out, but it's a bit strange. It's quite heavy and long for an 18650, but nice output and throw, similar to the Olight Warrior. Right, let's move on. So what have we got here? Wuben. A couple of the American subscribers put me onto the Wubens and said, "No, you must get a Wuben. Try out the Wubens." So I was able to get one of these. Unfortunately, when I got it, I thought, oh, it's one of these awful things from China where they say it's 1 billion LED lumens and it's zoomable. Generally, the zoomable ones are associated with a load of rubbish, unfortunately. But this one isn't a load of rubbish. So it's got a charging port up here, which is a bit strange, but interesting to see. And then you've got, there's your button on. Now, what you can do is, obviously, you can zoom this. So you zoom it, which it just moves the lens, so you can get a more concise spot there. And then if you screw it the other way, it widens for close-up stuff. Yeah, it's okay. It's very long for what it does, and it's got one of these tactical attack rings where you can you know, jump off a trampoline and through a burning building and attack someone if that's your cup of tea. So enough said about that. Quite nice, gives you a bit of distance. It's certainly not up to scratch with anything you've seen in the reviews, but it's cheap. Okay, what else have we got here? This is an old one. I mean, I've used this extensively for lots of years. Thrunite, I really like Thrunite, although I noticed on some of the forums they get a little bit of a bashing now and then, which I don't really understand. They don't need a bashing. They do a good job. This is in the cool white, if I remember rightly, and quite a nice unit. You've got your different modes there, and then turbo. Very nice, nice output, heavy, but that's because it uses a caddy system. And I'll show you that now. It's using pretty standard batteries. There you go, it uses like a caddy like you would see in the BLF QE. So I'm using only the pros in there, but they're double A's. So you've got a caddy there which puts them all together, and there's no spring in there or anything, it just goes straight into the head section there. So interesting to see, quite heavy, but a nice uniform output. And I've used this for going into caves and underground cellars and things like that, and never had a problem. Gives you a nice confident beam. Through-night, as you can see, look at all the bashes on that. I've whacked and dropped this loads of times and never had any problems. It's spot on. So put that to one side. Let's have a look. Right, let's go for the BLF first. Sorry, not BLF, my mistake there. It's the lumintop. So for those who know, the lumintop GT, if you ignore the Mini for a second, is a massive unit. So what they've done is they've thought, we'll use that branding and we'll just make a smaller one and call it the GT Mini. The problem is it's nowhere near the output of the GT, so I don't really think they should have called it that. They should have just called it the lumintop thrower or something, because you're not getting anywhere near that. It's got a nice interface though. So you've got like a ramping interface there, so you can ramp up and ramp down, and it's quite a nice thrower. It throws slightly further than the Convoy C8 Plus, but not enough further where it's fantastic. And then it's got one of these breathing LED lights, which is handy if you want to find it, but of course if it's away from you, you're not going to see it. Mungo's saying mini thrower. Yeah, see, I would call it a mini thrower. Yeah. Because it's nowhere near the GT. The GT is like for, you know, lighthouse keepers or people who want to take down drones. Well, you know, this is just a standard thrower. And in fact, some people would argue that the Emisar, is it the D1, is better than this, even though it's slightly smaller. It's more chunky and older, but it certainly does a better job. But I've tried this extensively on range tests and stuff, and it's not much better. Throwing distance, I think it's something like, was it not something like 736 meters? Don't quote me on that, I could be completely wrong. But it's very similar, excuse me, to the C8. The throwing distance isn't as far as you would imagine. It's got a nice smooth reflector there, but you could say, well, okay, so's the C8, but it's different. It's smaller. You can see that there's a size difference there, and I think this does an admirable job for the price. So you're going to get slightly further on this, but to be honest, I've compared it to the Q8, and the Q8 did a better job, even though it's more floody, because you've got more output on that. So you may be better off getting that, to be honest. It's going to do a very similar job. This certainly doesn't give you like a lightsaber beam into the distance, but workmanship on this beautiful, nice ramping interface, and a little running light there if you want it. So a little bit costly though. So in comparison to that, you've got the C8 Plus. There you go, Convoy C8 Plus. I love this. They've redesigned it slightly. So Mungo's saying he's got an Olight in the car, 3 18650s that does 800 meters. Pretty nice, pretty nice. What Olight is that? Is that the X7 or the Warrior or whatever the hell? Not Warrior. I forget all the names. My mind's muggled. Okay, so C8, I really like this. It's a tail clicker. Does a good job. It doesn't throw quite as far as this, but it's very close. But like I say, the bowl on the GT Mini is bigger. But for the price, this is excellent. You can get this for like $20 now. It's absolutely fantastic, and it's going to do a really good job. So it's just for something hanging about the car, no problems. Solid. I've dropped this a few times, never had any problems. Mungo's saying he can't remember. He can't remember the name. Well, now you know how I feel when I'm trying to do a review and I'm trying to remember something, and then 3 months later someone says, you've made a mistake. Okay, or the R50i or the Marauder. Yeah, I think that's possibly right. Okay, so moving on, for more light, you've got the, well, I'm trying to remember what this is now. If I can actually get it to focus here. There you go, Olight SC01. Now this actually has a better output than this, believe it or not. Even though it's got a smaller bowl, this puts out at least 2000 lumens, whereas this isn't. This is putting out about 1250. So because of that, this is going to give you more throw, believe it or not. And I have tested them side by side at very long distance. So turn it on without flashing, turn it on, and double click takes you straight to, I'm sure it's about 2500 lumens. Excellent unit this, but because of that, bear in mind it's using a massive battery. So if we go to that, look at the battery size, it's an absolute whopper. So it's using the huge 26650, which I like because you're getting a massive capacity. You're getting 4200 milliamp hours, whereas on the Q 30Qs by Samsung, the 18650, like 3000 milliamps, so you're getting more than 1000 milliamp hours capacity higher. So I really like this, and this also comes with, believe it or not, USB charging, but it's not done in a rubbish way. Watch, if you undo this, where is it? There you go. Micro USB. Yeah, no, I don't like micro USB, but it's there behind the thread section, which is important. And when you're charging it up, this lights up, which is quite interesting. So I think I did an excellent job. And I think it was, just had a question there, what's an IMR? I'm pretty sure IMR is just the battery. Yes, it's a lithium ion, but I'm trying to get that name. IMR, it's something like magnesium or something. And what they're doing is they're making the battery safer. You don't need it to be protected. I'm pretty sure I just, if someone can look that up and help me out, that would be fantastic. But I'm pretty sure it's the inclusion of nickel or magnesium or something like that. Right, so beautiful. This is one of my best throwers, even though it hasn't got a huge bowl. Jimmy Mack put me onto that one, so thank you for that one. Right, so I'll just have another drink, because we are now coming up to 1 hour 20. So I'm not the biggest speaker in the world, so oh, that's better. Excuse me. Right, moving on. We are near there. So here's a right whopper. So this uses 4 18650s. This is the BLF QE. So I want to show you what's in it first. So you've got 4 18650s. Now they're used in parallel in that it's quite an interesting system where the contacts are up here. So what you can actually do is, let's say you only had one battery, the rest didn't work or had run out or you were lost, you can still use the light. So watch, you'll notice it should flash. There you go, bang. You can now use the light. So ramping interface, beautiful, and ramps down. So very interesting the way that they use the batteries here. You can just stick in one battery and jobs are good. So very, very interesting. And obviously for the maximum capacity, you're going to want to stick them all in. So there's 4, and I think these are all Samsung 30Qs. Yeah, all Samsung 30Qs. Never had a problem with the Samsungs. Now this is a heavy unit, so I wouldn't EDC this, but it's excellent around the house. So it flashes, and you can e-lock out. So now it uses a quad emitter, but unlike the Emisar, which you have here, it's using reflectors. So you've got 4 smooth reflectors, independent, which come together and give you, they do, yes, up close they do give you like a flower petal effect, but it's not the end of the world. And you turn it on there, so there's low, and then it ramps all the way up to, I think it's something like 5000 lumens there, which is absolutely fantastic. So turn that off, and then you've got to go straight to a turbo. This uses, I think it's one of the Narsil versions, and it's a ramping interface. So in fact, here's a little cheat sheet which should have that information in. You can take the bottom off, and there's the instructions. Now that's where I keep my instructions, like a little packed lunch there, because the UI can be very in-depth on that one. It can be as in-depth as you want. It can be straightforward or in-depth. I mean, this is simple enough with the ramping that you could probably buy this as a gift and it wouldn't cause an issue. But I really like this light, high quality, very heavy, but come on, you're getting 4 cells in there and this big heatsink section here. You can really push out with this, which I have done, and it certainly beats the GT Mini and the C8 Plus and things like that. So very impressive. So I'll put that to one side. So we're nearly there. I'm not going to go into the specifics of this unit because it's not really a flashlight. It's something which has flashlight functions, but it's a pocket warmer. Mungo's saying that house emergency light, yeah, excellent, absolutely excellent point. He's completely right. This is handy to have. I have used this during a power cut where all I did was I just turned it on, ramped it down a little bit, and then I popped it down on the floor, so you got light bounce from the ceiling, and then when you had that, it lit up the whole room, no problem. And after 3 hours, the power came back on, no problem. So this is an excellent unit. It's certainly fantastic as a backup. Yes, it doesn't have USB charging, but who cares? And I would argue that most of the people who buy this light know what they're doing on the charger anyway. Right, so we've gone through everything here. I mean, there's a few little bits and pieces here, which I'm not going to go into. There's just one of the things for the tool, which you can put over. If I can find the tool, I've got a pile of flashlights here. Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it's one of these diffusers you can put on, and you know, you're supposed to put it on, it glows in the dark and things like that, and you know, and then when you turn the light off, it glows. So it's hard to see there, but that is glowing there, you can see. But I wouldn't necessarily use that. That's more of a gimmick. Actually, what I should have mentioned was as well, you can change this out on the tool for a magnetic base. So that has a magnet at the bottom. So just another thing you can go for there. Obviously, to run it, you're probably thinking, well, how do you run it if the button's gone? Well, what you do is you use it as a rotary action, turning it on and off like that. But excellent unit for the price, and highly recommend that, especially if you get the one with all the extras. Yes, that you can get that glow in the dark thing if you want to run around and trick or treat people or pretend you're a ghost or something, but that's certainly more useful than a glow in the dark section. So pop that in there. So that's me done really. I just wanted to have a little roundup because it's been a good year with a lot of decent lights coming out. One which I must get around to it, I still haven't reviewed, is the U-Torch. It's bigger, well, slightly bigger than the GT Mini here, but the reason why it's bigger is because it's using, right, Mungo's saying, any recommendations for as small as possible keychain AAA? Good question. Okay, so if it's got to be AAA, that's a difficult one. I would say the Thrunite TI3. It's reliable, it's got a little tiny bit of throw. I've really knocked that about and never had a problem with it, and the runtime is sensible. So look at the TI3, I think it might be up to V2 now. You're getting at least 120 lumens. So that's something you may want to consider. Or Mungo, you could consider the Jetbeam, which is very similar, uses a different lens system, so it's slightly shorter, but again, rotary. You may prefer this, but if you're going to use it as a keychain, you're probably not going to use this anyway. Someone's saying, Tyler's saying he likes the Olight. Yeah, I'd agree with that, and it's the CU version. I presume that's the copper. It certainly looks beautiful. I mean, the copper are really, even when it tarnishes, it just gets better. Copper's slightly heavier. You bear that in mind in your keychain. And obviously, you know, I really like this Roofus with the touch, the fingerprint touch and things like that. But you specifically asked for a AAA. Sorry, so that certainly wouldn't come into that equation. So what I was saying was this U-Torch here. The reason it's bigger is because it uses one of the new, and I want people's opinions on this. Now, this is one of the new 21700 batteries. What do people think of 21700 batteries? Mungo's saying, keeps on charge my Nitecore on the keychain. Yeah, it's easy done. It's easy done. Happens all the time. Which Nitecore do you use? Do you use the Tip, the Tup, or what's the other one? Or the Tini? Which one do you use there, Tyler? So what do people think of the 21700 batteries? They're slightly bigger. But I mean, when's this going to end where they keep saying, well, we'll just make it a little bit bigger. We'll just make it a little bit bigger. Mungo uses the Tip. Now, I really like the Tip. Yeah, there's the Tip there. Beautiful unit. Solid. Actually, Mungo, what do you think of the Tip's output, the lens? I think they've done a really good job. I filmed myself walking down a pathway and in a field, and I was quite impressed with the output for something that's off a keychain. Mungo says never heard of the 21700, so I will explain. Okay, so at the moment you've got the 18650s, which are lithium ion. Ignore this camo stuff on here, that's just a wrap. But There's an 18650. Now if we compare that to what some people are suggesting, anyway, I'm certainly not, or not at this moment in time, they're slightly higher and they're slightly fatter. So because of that, you can get more juice out of them. So this is a Samsung 30Q and you get 3000 milliamp hours battery out of this. That's the capacity. Whereas this one, which is slightly higher, slightly fatter, you're getting 4000. And also the amperage is different. This is probably putting out about 10 amps, and then on turbos modes it's going up to 20 momentarily, whereas this one will put out, I think it's 35 amps. So some people, if you go away and look up the 21700s, you'll see articles like Musk from Tesla says this is the future, and then yeah, but we're talking about flashlights here. Do we really need a much bigger cell? But I will do a review, and if I can find the unit, I have put it down here. There it is. So it's quite a big battery, but this is quite an interesting flashlight because it's a tail clicker, as you can see, but it's a triple emitter, so a triple emitter thrower, we'll call it. So I'm quite interested to see what this is like, because like I say, the GT Mini and the C8 Plus are very interesting and have these big bowls, but I don't necessarily think you have to have a big bowl. It's sometimes big enough and then a lot of lumens, and this does have a lot of lumens. You can get 3500 lumens out of this. So if I turn that on and then go straight, well, there's turbo. So as you can see, it's completely, if that's on my hand, the contrast you can't even see behind there. So that's how bright that is, and that feels hot just from here. So that's hot already. You know, Mungo's saying the tip is seriously impressive for its size. You're completely right. It's got a bigger battery than the Tiny. The outputs are similar. Just out of interest, what do you think of the daily continuous modes though? Because if you were giving it away as a gift, would you trust that to someone? Because they might get confused and say it's broken, why is it going off after 30 seconds? Or maybe it's unlike us, they actually bother to read the manual. That's the thing. Mungo's saying 18650 would be my limit for ADC. I agree with that. Once you're getting bigger than that, it becomes too much. And case in point is, this is about as heavy as I want on my forehead, and that's an 18650 in there, it goes in there. I think if they did a headlamp unit with a 21700, it just becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. Yes, you're getting more capacity, but it just becomes silly. They'd be better off trying to come up with a new battery chemistry which gives you more power, rather than keep making everything bigger, because where does that end? It just becomes silly. So I've been through all the main things. There's something I'm going to look at when I get a chance, so I shall pop that away. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. The review for the Roofus will be up soon. The one for the tip should be up in about a week. And I don't think there was anything else. The only other thing I was having a look at, if I can find the box, is there was another lumintop I had to look at, which is the EDC01, which looks pretty cool actually. There it is there. So we'll take it out. It looks like a ribbed sex toy, but it isn't. It's just a, I mean, someone was asking just before there for a AAA recommendation. I haven't reviewed this, so I'm not going to give you any opinion on it in case it's the wrong thing, but this is very similar to the TI3, but it has a TIR lens, which is quite sensible. So you have your different modes there. So pretty bright. I like lumintop. It's got a nice, the action on that's probably better than the Thrunite. So, and Mungo's saying the 21700 does look impressive. Yeah, for capacity it certainly is, you're right. Tyler Durden's saying it looks like a Prometheus. Now, is a Prometheus like a special one-off, or is it something you can buy commercially? So very interesting. I do like lumintop. They make some high quality stuff and it feels decent, and they've forgone the knurling by the fact that this is quite grippy. So pretty decent. It looks nice. So there's another option for whoever was, I do apologise, I've forgotten who it was, but for whoever was asking for a AAA recommendation, because this is a AAA. Tyler's saying that Prometheus is commercial. Look at Mastrop. Mastrop's quite interesting if you're after knives and flashlights and stuff. So I've got an Anyloop Pro in there. There it is, AAA, just to show you there. So it's a commercial but high end, the Prometheus, not this item which I have in my hand there. So I'm going to look at that. That sounds quite interesting. So very interesting. So that's another interesting one which I'll look at if I get time. And if you notice, that comes with one of these daft glow-in-the-dark things. What do people think of these glow-in-the-dark diffusers? If you really need a diffuser on something for your keyring, you're probably not going to... Yeah, Mungo's right, mass drop is deadly. You say, I will not buy anything unless I really need it. And then you go, look at that. It's a special one-off spider cone copper. I must have that. So you've got to be very careful. You're completely right. It's like taking a woman to a shoe shop. Disaster. And the only other things I did have to look at, if I ever get time, there's another on the road there. I think this is the U18 or whatever the hell it's called. Again, time's always against me, so let's have a look at this. So you could argue that that's the USB rechargeable copy version of the S2 baton. So if I find the S2 baton, I mean, what they've added is they've added these heat sinks and the USB charging. And they've gone for a orange peel reflector rather than a TIR. But I'll be interested to look at that because I love to, you know, the only problem is, someone's just put a comment there that they love shoes. Well, I like using them, but as I've said many times, men tend to buy things that they need, whereas women tend to buy things that they want. Now, those two things have different meanings if you look them up. So back to this, on the road, pretty impressed. I just wish that they'd kept this slim line. They've kind of lost the nice form of the Olight, if that's what they were copying. Cycling saw thumbs in, and they say size doesn't matter. Well, yes, I'm not going to get into that. So this is the U18. So interesting to see that. I just wish that this was Type C. It's micro USB again. They were able to do a Type C on the new on the road M3 Pro, which I was happy to see. I quite like these little things. It's made out of the same stuff you get wetsuits made out of. Tyler Durden saying, yeah, I need 5 watches, 20 knives and 20... Do you know what? I've got to take my own medicine. You're completely right. I don't need all of these lights, but in the coming apocalypse, that's my excuse. You never know what might happen. We might run out. Yeah, Mungo's saying, is that neoprene? It certainly feels like neoprene because I've used neoprene gloves and dry suits and things like that, and it certainly seems to be that, and especially the way it's nice to see. I mean, how many people use these sort of things? You just stick it in your pocket, don't you? It's made out of aluminium. Because at 1 minute you've got the manufacturer saying this is military specification anodization, the mean paint. So if it's got military spec anodization, why do I need to put it in here? Not very military spec, is it? But anyway, I'm starting to whinge here. So I'll put that away, and I will look at that when I get time. And the other thing I was supposed to have a look at, which again, still never had time, by Olight, is the H2R Nova. Now that puts out an incredible 2300 lumens, but it depends, you see. It depends on the, let's have a look. You've got to be careful. So you've got cool white and you've got neutral white. This is neutral white. So if you follow the yellow brick road, they've got different outputs. So the cool white on turbo, you're getting 2300 lumens. The neutral white is 300 lumens less, but sometimes I prefer a neutral tint. And I know someone before was saying they're like a 6000K tint, which, yeah, it's fine. It depends what you're using it for, and it depends what your personal preference is. So, and that's got the lithium battery included. Nice to see that. So I do apologise, I just can't keep up sometimes with all the reviews that I have to do, because the problem is, and I don't know if anyone agrees with me, you might see other channels where someone sits like this and go, so yeah, this is great, and then you press that, and then it turns on and off. It's amazing, fantastic, it's amazing, what a light, look at all that light, wow, it's like the sun. And then they don't even bother going outside, and you don't know what it's like. Whereas I force myself to carry lights I don't even like. I did it with this one. Unless you're going outside extensively, how do you know if it's decent or not? You're not going to necessarily pick up on those issues. So I find a lot of reviews recently, people are just running through the numbers and then, right, bye-bye, and then they run off and go and buy a Burger King. And I think, well, hang on a minute. Firstly, you need to be informing people about the light, the good points, the bad points. It's no good just reading off the spec sheet and then doing a run out of the toilet or wherever you've gone. You need to inform people, then go outside, check it out, show them. So there's some comments there saying, think your reviews are a lot more in depth. Yeah, I mean, I'm not having to go at those other channels. I really am not, because there are a lot of channels out there who know more than me. They're probably more intelligent than me, but I think that some channels really need to get out and try the units out and show them and things like that. because it's no good just sitting at a desk saying everything's fantastic, bye-bye, time for a burger. That's not really a review, in my opinion. You need to test it out. You wouldn't do that with a car, would you? You wouldn't say, here's a picture of this new Ford. Fantastic. Look at the headlights on that. That steering wheel's lovely and round. Right, bye. Hang on, you haven't even driven the car yet. So, you know, you really need to check these things out. Even when I forced myself to use this, the UI was just a nightmare. It was an unmitigated disaster, and that's been nice. But I think they could fix it. So I don't know if there's a way of, I might go on the forums actually and find out if there's a way of changing like the driver on this. But I'm gonna have to get the soldering and iron out for that, which I don't really want to do. Right, so this has been the live stream. I must end this soon because it's getting out of hand. I've been talking now for 1 hour 40 minutes, so I hope everyone's had a decent time. If there are any questions, you can ask them now whilst I refill this Men in Black case, and I'll try and answer them the best I can. But I really need to make a move because I've got a little cheeky drive to do. I've got a 3-hour drive. So now, which one did that go in again? This is like being at first school again. Hang on, was it that one or that one? It's that one. I like the reviews. Actually researches the product, uses the product. Yeah, exactly. Thanks a lot from Mungo there. Yeah, at the end of the day, if you're going to do a review, it's no good phoning it in. You're going to have to try stuff out because people can tell. As I've said, most of the people who comment on my videos know more than I do. They just necessarily don't have the time to muck about doing reviews like I do. So I understand the fact that, you know, there are people who know a hell of a lot more than I do. As long as I do my best and I show people and I try it out and tell you what I think and it's my honest opinion, that's fine. And if I get stuff for free, I always say so in the review. I say, look, you know, especially, you know, when I got the follow off, I said, I got this for free. But you know I'm not going to bull you. And I did point out the fact that there was dirt on the LED, which I don't know if you can see it there. It's like the top section of the dome there. Don't know what that was about. Probably quality control there. But I'm just going to give you an honest opinion. So I'll tidy them up later, but I must go and get a coffee. So if there's any more questions, Mungo's saying, where you going? I'm going up to the Highlands. So as people know, it'll be Ockeye the New, and that's not a racial slur there. That's done in jest. So I'll be going up to Scotland because it's nearly New Year. So Happy New Year for any of the people who I haven't said Happy New Year to yet. I really appreciate the help I get on this channel. Everyone's very helpful, and it's nice that people, now what's this, Tyler Durden saying, this has been a delightful morning hanging out with the guys. Yeah, I agree. Everyone has been extremely helpful. Mungo's saying beautiful, yeah. So I'll probably be up just hanging about Edinburgh, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably see some fireworks because Edinburgh, the fireworks are absolutely fantastic. I mean, if you've ever visited Edinburgh, you know the set of cannons and all sorts of stuff. Mungo, I agree with you there. Everyone's very helpful. I mean, I know I do joke sometimes and I get some silly comments on some of my reviews, and people, I think there was some Russian call me an arsehole and things like that. But if, as I've said before, if that's someone's opinion, I will support them because I'm pro freedom of speech. So I don't mind that. And, you know, I admit I do make mistakes in the reviews. But as you know, my reviews are jump cut free. They're from start to finish. You know, I'm not cutting bits out and every time someone does a fart, quick cut it and do a burp and things like that. So there's none of that. Because there's a few of my videos where you might see a little cheeky burp. I think it was the Mitford Castle one, but you have a look at that. So someone's put, CS has put, go to Loney Duke at South Queensferry tomorrow. Oh, Loney Duke, very nice. So it's been very nice having people in the chat there, and I apologise for people who are in bed at this moment in time, but I can't please everyone because it's a big planet, and unfortunately the sun only hits half the planet at one point, unless of course you're a flat earther. But I don't want to get into that argument because once you go down that rabbit hole, there's all big problems. So thank you very much to everyone who was courteous and chimed in with questions. You were very, very helpful. Mungo had some fantastic questions. That one about the S43 or the Emisar, I'm still not sure. Maybe I'll get that. It's cheaper. I don't know. No, I'll get the Emisar. Ooh, see, I'm unsure now. Anyway, so we're nearly up to 1 hour 45 minutes and my voice is about to break. So thank you very much for everyone, and I appreciate all the subscribers, and a happy new year to everybody. Thank you very much, and it's been lovely having you here. Have a happy new year. I wish health and happiness on everyone's family, Let's hope it's a good year in 2019, and I will try and get round to those reviews when I can. So thank you, and good night.